Hey!
Hey, hi.
Welcome to the Natasha and Debbie show.
Hello.
That's brutal. Just two patriotic girls. So please don't take us the wrong way. Hi guys.
Hey.
Just making sure you're awake.
Hopefully we didn't scare anybody.
We did that a few videos back, and we got a few comments of people like, "You scared the crap out of me."
Yeah, no, that was funny. Spit their tea out. And
Somebody, I was like, yeah, it's funny. Anyway, welcome today, guys. I'm happy to have you here. We're going to be doing a topic that we talked about briefly from another video in just a moment. But before we do that, again, based off YouTube contracts of our blood, we have to say the following. Take it away, Deb.
If you like today's video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Don't forget, I have a challenge out there to get to 100,000 subscribers by my birthday, March 21st.
Subscribing's free, and it doesn't annoy you with a bunch of weird notifications.
It sure doesn't.
Just throwing that out there. Okay, so today, actually, I have one more thing I want to say real quick.
What's that?
I want to say thank you to our trolls. You guys are awesome. We appreciate your comments, and they help our algorithms. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, trolls.
We appreciate it.
You're awesome. You know you're doing better when you get more of those. So
Sure
we
do.
just want to take a moment and say, heck yeah, we've arrived. Also, one other very important announcement. Totally forgot about this. Tomorrow's Monday.
Oh, yes.
But we're about to not make it Monday. We're about to make it what, Debbie?
Magic Monday.
We're going to have Magic Monday tomorrow, guys.
We are.
This is not going to be an ongoing thing, but this Monday for sure tomorrow and possibly next Monday. We have a special thing we're doing. And all I want to say is, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to try an accent.
It's going to be magical.
Yeah. So tune in and you'll see. It's going to be a little bit different. So yeah, Magic Monday. All right. So we talked about this. We watched the video on London. And then they briefly mentioned the Great Fire of London. And we had asked you guys, hey, should we take a dive into this and look at it? We want to know more about it. We learned a little bit in school here, but that was how many years back?
Many, many moons
500
ago.
years ago.
And you guys said that, yes, you want us to take a better look at it.
So
a deeper look.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to do today. This was sent to us by a trusted friend who already knew about the Great Fire. And she said that she actually learned quite a bit herself off this video. So
nice.
We know one video won't give us all the information, and there's some out there that are very long. So we thought this one was perfect length for us to do a reaction to. And hopefully we'll all learn something together. But we'll definitely be learning a lot and intrigued to learn about the story.
Yes, let's learn about it.
All right, let's dive in, guys.
Let me take you back to London over 350 years ago,
Okie dokie.
in the year 1666.
Ooh.
London looks very different to how it does now. We don't have any photos from 1666, but we do have drawings and paintings, like this one in the collection of the Museum of London,
Nice.
or this one by a Dutch artist called Wenceslaus Holler.
Steeples.
You'll see
and
there are
stuff.
no skyscrapers. The tallest buildings are church steeples, which you can see sticking up all over the city. And there are sailing ships on the Thames with tall masts and rigging. And when you walk down the streets, instead of jeans and t-shirts, the people around you are dressed like this.
Yeah, I don't want to wear that.
And instead of living in tower blocks, everyone lives in houses like this.
Those are cool.
In the 17th century, most people would have lived in houses like this in London. This is Staple Inn in Holborn.
Okay.
There's not many of these buildings left anymore, for obvious reasons. And what you can see is that it's made out of wood. Now, wood burns a lot easier than a brick house, but the reason you want a wood house is because it's a lot cheaper and faster to build a wooden house than a brick one. And if you're building your own house, that is an important consideration.
Yeah, we get a lot of crap in America because we have a lot of wooden houses. We live in a wooden house. The house next to us on both sides, both houses are brick, but we also have concrete block foundation too.
Yes.
But yeah, that's exactly why the wood, became such a big deal here. The early settlers, had we have tons of it,
Yes, plenty of wood.
Easier, faster, way faster.
Yep.
Can be cheaper, but not always. Depends on the size of the house.
That is true.
But we understand why you don't, based off this video, although we don't know the details of that, which is what we're going to learn about now. Just kind of stating the obvious there.
And secondly, you can build each floor a little bit bigger than the one underneath. And you can see that they've done that here. Each floor sticks out a little bit over the road.
That's interesting.
And if you do that for 6 stories on both sides of the road, you're going to end up closing the top of the road off. There are stories from the time about people being able to lean out of their upper story windows and shake the hand of the neighbour on the other side of the street. That means that fire can cross from one side of the street to the other really easily.
Now, there is a problem with these houses, and that's that they don't have electricity yet. When we think about homes before electricity, we often think about candles, but a big problem is ovens. Like, you can't bake anything or cook anything unless you have an open fire in your house. And something that needs a lot of ovens is a bakery. So that's where we start our story, in a bakery on Pudding Lane.
Chapter 1, Fire Starter. Apologies if the camera is a little bit shaky. I am very cold and I'm shivering a little bit. But I want to take you back to September the 2nd, 1666. Behind me right now is a very modern concrete building, but in 1666 there would be a bakery here, owned by a man called Thomas Fariner. Thomas Fariner went to bed one night. We don't know exactly what happened in his bakery, but downstairs somewhere a spark caught. We don't know if he left a candle burning or if he left his oven on. But he woke up in the middle of the night to find that his house was full of smoke and he couldn't get down the stairs. So he and his family had to jump out of their upper story window. Their maid refused to jump and she was the first casualty of the fire.
Okay, question here. I don't remember where I heard this, but I remember I did. But I remember people saying that it was like debatable as to how it started. Like there wasn't just like, I remember hearing something about this.
Right.
Just the Pudding Lane, I think is what I heard, in a baker.
Yeah, that there's still different opinions about how it
is that
started.
true or am I mistaken on that? Is it debatable? Is it actually well documented and known that this is how it started? Let us know, because obviously we don't. So just let us know.
And the fire starts to spread really quickly.
Sure.
For a couple of reasons. Not, as some people will tell you, because everyone had thatched roofs. Thatched roofs had been banned in London hundreds of years before this.
Really?
Because of fires. And in fact, most people did not have thatched roofs at this time. The reason the fire spreads is partly because everyone's house is made out of wood. And the summer has just been a really hot one. So the wood in everyone's houses is really dry and it's like kindling. Partly it spreads because it just happens to be really windy that day and that pushes the fire around faster than people can put it out.
Wind's the worst.
And partly it spreads quickly because it starts in the middle of the night and everyone who could be around to put it out is asleep.
One person who's asleep is Samuel Pepys.
His name is spelled Pepys, but it's pronounced Pepys, I promise.
Samuel Pepys was a bigwig.
Like literally he had a big...
I like her.
In the Admiralty, which was a bit like the Navy, but today he's famous for keeping a diary about the 1660s, where he writes down some really good details about what he and his rich, important friends were up to in London during this time.
Side note, Samuel Pepys wrote his diaries in code. He did a lot of stuff that he didn't want his wife to find out about. So he replaces a lot of English words with French words or Italian words, or words that sound French and Italian but aren't. And then he writes the whole thing not in cursive but in shorthand. So it didn't get translated until the 19th century. And while you might expect his diary to have looked like this, it actually looks like this.
No, thank you.
Okay.
If you're looking to follow in Pepys' footsteps, his house is gone, but you can still visit his street, which was Seething Lane, and you can visit his parish church, St Olave's, and there's a blue plaque on the site where he was born, in Salisbury Court, near St Paul's Cathedral. I'm going to add all of these to a Google map linked below, so you can visit these places for yourself.
Anyway, Samuel Pepys's maid, Jane, wakes him up in the middle of the night to tell him that there is a fire happening in the city. And he goes to his window and he looks out and he can see it in the distance. And he says, it's just a little one. That'll be out by morning.
Maybe he thought
Nothing to worry about. And he goes back to bed. When he wakes up again in the morning, 300 houses have been burned down.
Didn't know that.
He ain't seen nothing yet.
Okay.
Chapter 2. Panic.
People start to panic
yeah.
and they start trying to move their belongings out of the way of the fire. Samuel Pepys, very famously, has a wedge of Italian cheese that he buries in his garden to save it, along with some wine and some other bits and bobs.
I got you. I'm sorry, what?
You got to save the cheese.
It's a fire. People got to, take precedence over things. There's so many people that nowadays people still die going back in to get things like that. 300 houses. Can you imagine, though, being that person that was like, it'll be fine. Right. Be out by the morning, and you wake up and it's like, oh, I was wrong.
Yeah. And I can just imagine all the panic going on and everybody trying to
hurry
around.
Jeez. That's absolutely horrific. I didn't know it was that many freaking houses. Now, I do know, too, from the video we did on London, they said this is also what helped to end the plague at that time. Debbie Johnny, that's the first time I've ever pointed it out. I was never going to do it to you. Are you mad?
No, I have yawned in almost every video.
No, not almost. Not almost.
Go back and look and see if you can find out where I yawned in every single video.
Every video we've ever done, she yawns at least once, probably 2 or 3 times.
It's true.
It's true, but I've never said anything until now. I couldn't help it. Anyway, let's get back into this. Rewind that. But dang, 300 houses overnight. Wow.
Yeah,
that's a fire.
In his garden to save it, along with some wine and some other bits and bobs. It's a good indicator of what he thought was precious, although he doesn't record ever going back for it. So who knows if it worked. Maybe he just invented cheese fondue, who knows. And it's not just Pepys. He says he sees other people throwing their things into the river rather than have them burn.
Wow.
And people sit in boats on the Thames with all their belongings, watching the fire on the bank, waiting for it to burn out.
Can you imagine those poor people?
As the fire gains ground, temperatures reach up to 1,700 degrees Celsius, and the iron gates of the city start to melt.
What?
Whoa.
And
what?
Wow.
Holy
iron
crap.
gates are melting. That is one huge fire. Unbelievable.
I didn't expect this.
I mean, I knew it was bad, but
I don't know. This is incredible. Like, that's incredible.
Definitely intense.
Okay. And then, just picturing those poor people sitting in the boats like that, watching their city burn, Like, oh my Lord. And back then, you don't... You can't phone and see if your family's okay or your friends and neighbors are okay. You're just sitting there going, I don't know what's happening.
You have to wait.
Oh, this is terrifying. This is terrifying. This may sound like ignorant comment, but I honest to God don't know. Is there a movie they made about this? And not some crappy Hollywood thing, but an actual, as realistic as possible. Not realistic, but as truthful as they know it to be.
Right.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes. And the iron gates of the city start to melt. And finally the fire reaches St. Paul's Cathedral. Now, St. Paul's Cathedral is built out of stone, so it's safe. In fact, Londoners know it's safe. It has survived fires in the past. And so they've put their things in the cathedral to save them. But this time, there's some building work going on at St. Paul's. And the tower is covered in wooden scaffolding. And it's that scaffolding that catches fire during 1666. According to eyewitness accounts, the stones of St. Paul's got so hot that they exploded.
What?
And the lead from the roof runs down the street in a river. That's how you burn down a stone building.
Chapter 3.
Wow.
So, again, we brought up wood houses and stuff like that in America, but this is so sad, too. Just a few years back, right around COVID, a house in our neighborhood that would you consider that brick or stone? The one up the road?
I think it was brick.
Brick. Yeah, it caught fire too, and it blew open like a wooden stack. So it's Yeah, I mean, it's not like any house is fireproof.
No, none of them are.
You know, and we unfortunately saw that firsthand. And that also happened middle of the night with a family and young children. Thankfully, everyone was okay. Their house wasn't, obviously, but
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just hearing that too, like it just shows you nothing's fireproof. And some things are better, yes, but man, this is unreal. This will be an interesting chapter here.
Yeah, how did they get it out? Yeah.
Firefighting.
So where's the fire brigade? Well, in 1666, there is no fire brigade yet. Everybody is expected to pitch in. The parish will keep some firefighting tools on hand for you, but you've got to do it yourself.
Okay.
Now, these days we might think about putting the fire out with water, right?
Like the river?
And that does happen, especially if you're near the river or if you're near a well. But not everybody is. And even if you are, there aren't any rubber hoses yet.
Right.
So you can only put as much water on the fire as will fit in a bucket. And if your whole house is on fire,
it don't help.
That's not going to do very much.
Wow.
What's a much more effective firefighting tool is creating fire breaks. If you have a whole row of houses, you destroy one in the middle, and that means at least the fire can't get any further.
Right.
And firefighters know that this works really well. They've done it before and it's worked. And so Londoners will keep things called fire hooks around so that they can pull houses down when they need to.
Really?
Oh, wow.
So imagine you're living on a street and you can see the fire at one end of the street and it's coming towards you. You don't want your house to be the one that gets pulled down, right?
Of course not.
Like you want your neighbour's house to get pulled
neighbours.
down. So there is one person who has the authority to order the pulling down of houses, and that is the Lord Mayor, Thomas Bloodworth.
Okay.
And he doesn't come out of this situation looking great, to be honest. Samuel Pepys says that he's walking around the city on the second day and he can't see any firefighting efforts going on. And so he has to go over the Lord Mayor's head to the king, and the king has to order him to do his job. We think that actually he might have fled the city partway through the fire, because we don't hear anything about him after the second day. In the end, it's people like Charles II, the king, and his brother, the Duke of York, who step up and organise fire breaks to be put in place.
Glad someone did.
In the end, it's not really human effort that puts out the fire. It's the fact that the wind dies down. And once the fire isn't getting pushed around as fast, it's a lot easier to get around it and create the fire breaks and put water on it to get it out.
But how long did that take?
In the end, the fire burns for around 5 or 6 days, depending on who you ask.
Look at that map.
Seriously? 5 or 6 days? And yeah, that's insane. And I'm sitting here thinking, and I can't help it, don't get mad at me. It's England. Why isn't it raining?
True.
I'm serious. I'm sitting here thinking that, like, and that many days in a row, you would think it would. Am I crazy on this one?
Yeah, and it had been dry because they said everything was real dry. And
right. So I'm like, okay, so how long was it dry for? And then you go on this many days in, like, is this like the one time in the history of life where it didn't rain?
Right.
Or am I just looking at that in a totally different way? But you're right, that map is absolutely horrific.
Yeah, that is
a terror. That is a terror. I am so thankful that we have the things we have nowadays, you know? I mean, oh my gosh, this is just...
That is incredible.
Outrageous.
13,200 houses have been burned down.
Wow.
87 churches.
Oh, man.
4 prisons.
Wow.
In terms of human casualties, most sources from the time put the number under 10, weirdly enough.
That's shocking.
Usually around 6 or 7. Now, historians have debated the accuracy of those numbers. Like, surely that can't be right.
Yeah, it seems way too low.
There must have been homeless people and single people who weren't being counted. We know that the fire in certain places was hot enough to burn bones, so there wouldn't necessarily be any human remains. But, on the other hand, we don't have a huge spike in burials at this time, and there aren't a lot of records of Auntie Margaret who died in the fire, as there were, for example, for the plague a year beforehand. And after the fire, people start looking around for someone to blame.
Chapter 4. Was it terrorists?
It's always a question,
some
right?
people think that this is God's punishment for London's sins. What those sins are
Wow.
depends on who you ask, but a lot is made at the time of the fact that the fire begins on Pudding Lane and supposedly finishes on Pie Corner. London is being punished for the sin of gluttony. And at Pie Corner, which is between Cock Lane and Giltspur Street, you can still go there to this day, and they have a little monument of a golden cherub, and he's a little bit chubby, to remind Londoners not to be so gluttonous
Seriously?
ever again.
Interesting.
And of course, some people think it's terrorists. The terrorist threat in this period is thought to come from Catholics, whether that's English Catholics or French Catholics or the Dutch. The Dutch don't tend to be Catholics, but we don't like them very much anyway.
Okay.
And one Frenchman actually confesses
We have no problem with the Dutch.
No.
starting the fire. His name is Robert Hubert.
Wait, did you
and
say
there's a trial.
confess?
Is
Yes.
to starting the fire. His name is Robert Hubert, and there's a trial. And they find out that he wasn't in London when the fire
Do you just want
started.
to be famous
The judge thinks he's mad,
for that?
but he hangs him anyway.
Oh,
Okay.
And when his body is brought down from the scaffold, Londoners are so furious that they rip his body to pieces. Chapter 5. Rebuilding.
geez, you guys.
Officially, the king, Charles II, decides it was an act of God, and he puts his efforts into rebuilding. He ensures that this is never going to happen again by putting lots of new laws in place.
Like no
so,
wood
for
houses.
example, you're not allowed to build your house out of wood anymore. You
Good
have
law.
to build it out of brick or stone. If you try and build your new house out of wood, the king's men will turn up at your house and pull it down. Start again. Do it in brick this time. But building out of brick is slow and expensive, and people just want a new house as quickly as possible.
We gotta wait.
And there's no fire insurance yet, so probably all your money was in your house.
Yeah,
It burned
sure.
down.
Yeah.
The king puts an architect called Sir Christopher Wren in charge of the rebuilding effort. And he builds lots of new churches in London, including this one right here, St Paul's Cathedral. Now, it looks really different to a lot of our English cathedrals, and that's because of this rebuilding effort. Most of our cathedrals have towers or spires. This one has a dome. It's built in the fashionable new Baroque style. And Christopher Wren doesn't just want to build new churches. He also wants to change the street layout of London. He wants to completely start from scratch and make these big, wide, straight roads with boulevards, a little bit like Paris today. But in the end, he can't make it happen. There are just too many landowners in London. It is too piecemeal.
Okay.
So he doesn't get his way on the streets. He gets his churches instead. To this day, there are dozens of churches by Christopher Wren all over London, and he really gave London a very distinct character.
That's really neat.
Finally, after the fire, people decide it would be a rather good idea to invent insurance for this sort
That's
of
where
thing,
this came from.
where everybody pays into a pot, and if your house gets burned down, you get the money in the pot to rebuild with.
Nice.
Okay.
The first person to try this out is the excellently named Nicholas, if Jesus Christ had not died for thee, thou hadst been damned, Barban. I'm not even kidding. That was his real name.
Oh, stop it. Come on. What the crap did we just see there?
That is a very, very extremely long name.
Ridiculous name. Is that really real?
Apparently so.
Okay. So this is where fire insurance came from, huh? Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I'm glad that came out of it at least. Help everybody out for these things, but this is fascinating. At the same time, I keep getting freaked out. I try to put myself sometimes in these positions of things, back in history.
Oh, I've been terrified.
Yeah, just the panic. I mean, and then the guy who was, I can't remember his name, that was originally responsible,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of goes, oh, to hell with this,
Yep.
and takes off.
Yep. You're on your own. Bye.
Yeah, that's messed up. But I'm glad the king stepped up and helped out. So good. All right, that weird dude's name. What the crap? Okay.
Barban. I'm not even kidding.
Nicholas.
That was his
Nick.
real name. By 1700, insurance companies had their own fire brigades, and you'd get a little plaque to put on your house to prove you were insured.
Okay.
And if your house was on fire, the fire brigade from your insurance company would turn up. And if you had one of their plaques, they'd put out your fire.
Okay.
And if you didn't,
they'd drive off and leave you to
Aw.
it.
Somewhere around 80,000 people are made homeless by the fire. And without anywhere else to go, they camp in the fields around London.
Really?
The king organises bread to be brought to feed them, and charitable donations pour in from all over the country. But some of them are still out there a year later.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for
That's
watching.
it at the beginning. We know no video is going to be all encompassing.
No.
Would have liked to know what happened to those people eventually. Probably nothing good. I learned everything. I did not know any of that.
No, that was very fascinating.
It was. It's also, like we were just saying, scary and sad. And the ending, though, with the not having insurance. If they just don't have the plaque out there, then just forget you. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Run around.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Put your own fire out.
Yeah. I guess it goes back to that thought process of do it on your own. That's rough. But yeah, I the map they showed earlier, and I'm glad you pointed it out. That was just an insane size, insane scale of how big this was. And then they hear less than 10 people.
Were reported dead.
Yeah, like she said, even like 5 or 6. And I think even on our video on London, I think even somebody commented maybe like 2 people.
Right.
So that's just crazy. I just find that shocking and also blessing, of course, for so many people's ancestors.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of you would not be here had that went another way.
Right.
My gosh. I mean, it's insane. But let us know if you learned something in this video too. And if you have a different theory, or if there are other theories like we asked before on how the fire started. I don't know. Again, I can't remember if that's something that was said or not. And if you liked this video, please drop us a like and consider subscribing to the channel. As Debbie mentioned, it is free to do so.
Yes, and it shows your support.
Absolutely. What was the most shocking part for you other than the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the whole thing. And thinking back then, how they didn't have anything to fight the fires with.
Of course.
Really, except for creating those fire breaks. And how they would just take those hooks and pull the house down.
Yeah, it's actually really impressive.
Makes me think, how heavy was that? How hard was it to pull a house down?
I was thinking that too. I'm like,
I mean, if it's 3 stories tall. Right.
How many people would it take to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
How did they do that?
I don't know.
Architecture by Debbie really wants to know. How did this work?
I enjoyed learning about this, and yeah, that was a lot more than I bargained for. And I thought that this lady did a really good job on her presentation on the video.
I think she did. She added a little bit of humor in there, here and there too. On such a serious subject, and that was very
it's
nice
helpful
to
do
have.
that. It's helpful to do that. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did, and let us know if you learned something. We'd love to know. Again, don't forget tomorrow, Monday.
That's right.
Magic Monday. It's not going to be a thing like all the time. It might happen again next week, maybe. Please make sure you have that notification bell turned on, or you're just going to mess out. But it's something different. It's something we're excited about doing and looking forward to. So we'll be back tomorrow. Will you? Anyway, guys, until then, love, like jazz.
Be as strong as Tyson.
Bye-bye.
Bye.